Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English in Moments. I'm Elena, your host for this lesson, and today I want to start by saying something that I mean completely and without any reservation. This video is for you, not for confident speakers, not for people who already feel comfortable in English. This video is specifically and carefully and lovingly made for the learner who knows more English than they show, who understands more than they let on, and who stays quiet in moments when they have something real and valuable to say. If that is you, then you are in exactly the right place. And I am genuinely glad you are here. Today, we are going to do something that no shadowing session has ever done quite like this. We are going to practice English specifically designed for shy people. Not simplified English, not baby English, real and beautiful B1 to B2 English, but delivered in a way that understands where you are starting from. We are going to explore why shyness affects your speaking. Train your inner voice to work for you instead of against you. Practice real conversations that shy people actually face. And build your confidence step by step until by the end of this session, you feel something genuinely different. Not magically transformed, but meaningfully shifted. A little braver, a little more ready, a little more yourself in English. So take a breath, settle in, and let's begin together, gently, from exactly where you are right now. Let's start with the truth, because shy learners deserve honesty more than they deserve false encouragement. And the truth is this: shyness in a second language is not a personality flaw. It is not a sign that you are bad at English. It is not evidence that you will never be fluent. Shyness in a second language is a completely natural and completely understandable response to a genuinely vulnerable situation. Think about what speaking a second language actually asks of you. It asks you to express your thoughts and your feelings and your intelligence in a code that does not yet feel fully yours. It asks you to be misunderstood and to recover. It asks you to sound different from how you sound in your first language. It asks you to perform under observation. And it asks you to do all of this in real time, with no pause button and no dictionary. That is an enormous ask. And feeling shy in the face of that ask is not weakness. It is sensitivity. And sensitivity, channeled in the right direction, is one of the most powerful qualities a language learner can have. So shadow this first truth with me. Listen, I am not shy because I am bad at English. I am shy because speaking a second language takes real courage. And courage is something I am building every single day. Shadow it. I am not shy because I am bad at English. I am shy because speaking a second language takes real courage. And courage is something I am building every single day. Say that again and really let it land. Courage is something I am building every single day. Yes, it is. And today is one more day of building it. Now, let's look more closely at what actually happens inside a shy person when they are about to speak English. Because understanding the mechanism is the first step to changing it. When a shy learner is about to speak, several things happen almost simultaneously. The brain scans for possible mistakes. The inner critic activates. The body responds with physical tension, a tightening throat, a faster heartbeat, a sudden blankness where words used to be. And in the half second before speech, the shy learner makes a calculation. Is what I am about to say good enough? Is my pronunciation correct enough? Will I be understood? Will I sound foolish? And most of the time, the answer the inner critic gives to all of those questions is no. Not good enough. Not correct enough. Not worth the risk. So the shy learner stays silent, and the moment passes. And the English that was there, waiting, returns to its quiet corner unused. Shadow this description with me. Listen. Sometimes before I speak, I feel a tightening in my throat. My mind goes a little blank. I wonder if what I am about to say is good enough. And sometimes I stay quiet instead of speaking. I know this feeling well, and I am learning to move through it rather than stop at it. Shadow it. Sometimes before I speak, I feel a tightening in my throat. My mind goes a little blank. I wonder if what I am about to say is good enough. And sometimes I stay quiet instead of speaking. I know this feeling well, and I am learning to move through it rather than stop at it. That last sentence is the key. Move through it rather than stop at it. Not eliminate the feeling, not pretend it is not there, but move through it. That is what brave speaking looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to speak anyway. Let's shift our focus to the inner critic, because every shy person has one. And in a second language, the inner critic is louder than ever. The inner critic is that voice in your head that comments on everything you say before you say it and after you say it, and sometimes during. It sounds like this. Your accent is too strong. You used the wrong tense. You said that awkwardly. They did not understand you. You should have said it differently. You are taking too long to answer. You sound unnatural. And the inner critic is incredibly fast. It can deliver all of those judgments in less than a second. And the shy learner, who is already sensitive and already aware, hears every single one of them. So the first piece of inner voice training I want to do with you today is this. We are going to practice replacing the inner critic with an inner coach. Not a falsely positive voice that tells you everything is perfect when it is not, but a fair and honest and encouraging voice that tells you the truth without cruelty. Shadow this inner coach voice with me. Listen. I made a small mistake just now. That is okay. Mistakes are how I learn. The person I was talking to understood me, and that is what matters. I am going to keep going. Shadow it. I made a small mistake just now. That is okay. Mistakes are how I learn. The person understood me, and that is what matters. I am going to keep going. Now, let's try another. Listen. I could not find the exact word I wanted, so I described it a different way, and it worked. That is not a failure. That is actually a real language skill. Shadow it. I could not find the exact word I wanted, so I described it a different way, and it worked. That is not a failure. That is actually a real language skill. And one more. Listen. I felt nervous before I spoke, but I spoke anyway. And the conversation happened, and nothing went wrong. And I feel a little braver than I did 5 minutes ago. Shadow it. I felt nervous before I spoke, but I spoke anyway. And the conversation happened, and nothing went wrong. And I feel a little braver than I did 5 minutes ago. These inner coach sentences are not affirmations to be recited mindlessly. They are accurate descriptions of what actually happens when brave, shy people speak. Read them again. Absorb them, because they are true. Before we dive into specific speaking scenarios, let's take a quick physical reset. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, and take a slow breath. You are doing incredibly well. Ready? Let's move on to some of the most common situations that make shy English learners feel anxious. Because shyness is not a general feeling, it is triggered by specific situations. And preparing for those specific situations in advance is one of the most effective confidence-building strategies available. The first situation is being asked a direct question in English when you were not expecting it. This is one of the most common and most frightening moments for shy learners. Someone turns to you suddenly and asks something, and your mind goes blank, and the silence grows, and the anxiety grows with it. So let's practice exactly this. Imagine someone has just asked you, "So what do you think about that?" You were not expecting the question. Your mind needs a moment. Shadow these buying time responses with me. Listen, that is a really interesting question. Let me think about that for a moment. Shadow it. That is a really interesting question. Let me think about that for a moment. Now another. Listen. I am not sure I have a strong opinion on that yet, but I think... Shadow it. I am not sure I have a strong opinion on that yet, but I think... Now notice something important about those two responses. They are not wrong answers. They are not confused answers. They are confident and natural responses that buy you the time you need without signaling panic or incompetence. Native speakers use them constantly, and using them yourself makes you sound not less fluent, but more fluent. Because truly fluent speakers know how to manage the pace of a conversation. Shadow 3 more buying time phrases with me. Listen. Actually, that is something I have been thinking about recently. Shadow it. Listen. I would need to think about that more carefully before I could give you a proper answer. Shadow it. Listen. That depends on a few things. Can I ask you a question first? Shadow it. These phrases are gold for shy learners. Practice them until they are completely automatic. Because when your mind goes blank, you need something that comes out before the thinking even starts. Next, we will tackle the second high anxiety situation. Being in a group conversation where everyone else seems to be speaking easily and you cannot find a way in. This is one of the loneliest feelings in language learning. Everyone is talking and laughing, and you are on the outside, understanding most of it, wanting to contribute, but unable to find the gap. So let's practice entering a group conversation in English. These are the phrases that create the opening for you. Shadow them with me. Listen. Actually, I wanted to say something about that. Shadow it. Can I add something here? Shadow it. I was just thinking the same thing. Shadow it. Shadow. Can I just jump in for a second? Shadow it. That reminds me of something I read recently. Shadow it. I agree with that, and I would also add, shadow it. Now, let's practice using one of those openers in a fuller response. Imagine the group is talking about the best way to learn a language. You have something to say. Listen and shadow. Actually, I wanted to say something about that. In my experience, the most effective thing is not studying grammar, but just using the language as much as possible. Even if you make mistakes, especially if you make mistakes. Shadow it. Actually, I wanted to say something about that. In my experience, the most effective thing is not studying grammar, but just using the language as much as possible. Even if you make mistakes, especially if you make mistakes. Notice how that response is natural, opinionated, and genuinely interesting. It is not a long speech. It is not perfectly structured, but it is real and it contributes something meaningful to the conversation. That is all group conversation requires. One real contribution, not a performance, just a moment of genuine presence. Another major hurdle is the third high anxiety situation, asking for help or clarification when you did not understand something. This is one of the situations shy learners avoid most consistently, and the avoidance costs them enormously. Because when you pretend to understand something you did not, you miss information, you make mistakes, and you carry the additional anxiety of hoping nobody notices you did not understand. So let's practice asking for clarification directly and confidently. Shadow these clarification phrases with me. Listen. Sorry, could you say that again, please? I want to make sure I understood correctly. Shadow it. I am not sure I caught all of that. Could you repeat the last part? Shadow it. Could you explain what you mean by that? I want to make sure I understand properly. Shadow it. Sorry, did you say? And then repeat what you thought you heard. Shadow it. I understood most of that, but I missed one word. Which word did you use for? Shadow it. I just want to confirm what you said. You said, right. Shadow it. Now here is something I want you to hear clearly. Asking for clarification is not a sign of low English level. It is a sign of high listening standards. It means you care about understanding correctly. It means you are engaged and paying attention. Some of the most respected communicators in any language ask for clarification regularly because they know that pretending to understand is far more costly than admitting you need a moment more. Shadow this truth with me. Listen. Asking for clarification is not weakness. It is precision. It means I care about understanding correctly, and people respect that. Shadow it. Asking for clarification is not weakness. It is precision. It means I care about understanding correctly, and people respect that. Now we are going to go deeper into inner voice training because the inner voice is where shyness lives. And transforming that inner voice, not silencing it, not fighting it, but genuinely transforming it into something that works for you rather than against you, is the most profound and lasting change a shy English learner can make. Let's start by identifying the most common things the shy inner critic says, and then replacing each one with the inner coach version. First inner critic sentence. Shadow the inner critic. My accent is terrible, and everyone notices it. Now shadow the inner coach response. My accent is part of who I am. It shows where I am from, and it does not prevent communication. The people who matter are listening to what I say, not how I sound. Shadow the inner coach again. My accent is part of who I am. It shows where I am from, and it does not prevent communication. The people who matter are listening to what I say, not how I sound. Second inner critic sentence. Shadow the inner critic. I always use the wrong grammar and it makes me sound stupid. Now shadow the inner coach response. My grammar is not perfect yet, but it is good enough to communicate clearly, and communication is the entire point of language. Perfection is not required for connection. Shadow the inner coach again. My grammar is not perfect yet, but it is good enough to communicate clearly, and communication is the entire point of language. Perfection is not required for connection. Third inner critic sentence. Shadow the inner critic. Nobody wants to wait for me to find my words. I am too slow. Now shadow the inner coach response. Taking a moment to find the right words shows that I am thoughtful and careful with language. The people worth talking to will wait, and the ones who will not wait are not worth rushing for. Shadow the inner coach again. Taking a moment to find the right words shows that I am thoughtful. The people worth talking to will wait, and the ones who will not wait are not worth rushing for. Fourth inner critic sentence. Shadow the inner critic. I said something wrong just now, and everyone is judging me. Now shadow the inner coach response. I said something imperfectly. It happened. It is over. The conversation continued. Nobody is thinking about my mistake as much as I am, and I am going to let it go right now. Shadow the inner coach again. I said something imperfectly. It happened. It is over. The conversation continued. Nobody is thinking about my mistake as much as I am, and I am going to let it go right now. These inner coach replacements are not about lying to yourself. Every single one of them is factually accurate. Accents do not prevent communication. Good enough grammar does work. Thoughtful speakers are respected. And other people genuinely are not thinking about your mistakes as much as you are. The inner coach is not optimistic. The inner coach is simply more accurate than the inner critic. Moving forward, we are going to build confidence step by step through a series of real conversation scenarios. Because confidence is not something you feel before you act. Confidence is something you build by acting. Every conversation you have in English, however imperfect, however brief, however nervous, adds one more brick to the foundation of your confidence. So let's practice those conversations now, in the safety of this session, where there is no judgment, no one watching, no consequence for imperfection, just you and the language, and the gradual and genuine building of your brave English voice. Our first conversation scenario is introducing yourself to someone new. Shadow this self-introduction with me. Listen. Hi, my name is, and I am from. I have been learning English for a few years now, and I really enjoy it, even though it can be challenging sometimes. I am happy to meet you. Shadow it. Hi, my name is, and I am from. I have been learning English for a few years now. I enjoy it, even though it can be challenging. I am happy to meet you. Notice how that introduction is honest and warm and completely natural. It even mentions that English can be challenging, and that honesty makes it more human and more relatable, not less impressive. Now let's add a follow-up sentence for when the other person responds warmly. Listen. Oh, really? That is interesting. How long have you been? And ask about something they mentioned. I find that asking a question immediately takes the focus off me and puts it on the other person, which I find much more comfortable. Shadow it. That is interesting. How long have you been? I find that asking a question takes the focus off me and puts it on the other person, which I find much more comfortable. That last observation is both true and charming. It is the kind of self-aware honesty that creates immediate connection. Our second conversation scenario is making small talk with someone you see regularly but do not know well. A neighbor, a colleague you pass in the corridor, someone at your local coffee shop. These brief, repeated encounters are actually some of the most anxiety-producing situations for shy learners because they feel obligatory but also intimate. There is no clear script, no obvious topic, just two people who recognize each other and need to say something. So let's practice small talk sentences that feel genuine rather than performed. Shadow these with me. Listen. Morning. How are you getting on? Shadow it. It has been a busy week, hasn't it? Shadow it. I keep meaning to ask, how did that thing go that you mentioned last time? Shadow it. The weather has been strange lately. Have you noticed? Shadow it. I saw something the other day that reminded me of something you said once. Shadow it. Now notice something about all 5 of those sentences. None of them require a long answer. None of them put pressure on the other person to perform. And none of them require you to have something clever or impressive to say. They are just small, warm human signals that say, I see you and I am glad to be in the same space as you. That is all small talk is. Not entertainment, not performance, just warmth. And warmth is something every shy person already has in abundance. They simply need permission to express it in English. Our third conversation scenario is disagreeing with someone politely. Because one of the things shy people avoid most consistently is saying something that might create conflict. And in English, this often means agreeing with things they do not actually agree with, staying silent when they have a valid, different view, and feeling frustrated afterwards that they did not speak their truth. So let's practice gentle and respectful disagreement in English, because having a different opinion is not rude. Expressing it respectfully is one of the most sophisticated conversational skills in any language. Shadow these polite disagreement phrases with me. Listen, I see what you mean, but I think I see it a little differently. Shadow it. That is an interesting point. I am not sure I completely agree, though. Can I share a different perspective? Shadow it. I understand why you would think that. For me personally, I have found the opposite to be true. Shadow it. I respect your opinion on that. I think mine is a little different, and I would love to talk through the difference if you are open to it. Shadow it. I might be wrong about this, but I genuinely see it quite differently. Shadow it. Now let's practice a fuller, polite disagreement. Imagine someone says that the best way to learn English is to move to an English-speaking country. You have a different view. Listen and shadow your response. I understand why people say that, and I think it can definitely help, but I am not sure it is the only way or even the best way for everyone. I know people who have become very fluent without ever living abroad. And I know people who have lived abroad for years and still struggle. I think what matters more is how intentionally you practice rather than where you are geographically. Shadow it. I understand why people say that. It can definitely help, but I am not sure it is the only way or the best way for everyone. I know people who became very fluent without living abroad. I think what matters more is how intentionally you practice rather than where you are. That response is thoughtful, confident, backed by evidence, and completely respectful of the other person's view. It does not attack, it does not apologize. It simply and calmly offers a different perspective. That is brave English, and you just practiced it. Our fourth conversation scenario is expressing a feeling or emotion in English. Because shy people often find emotional expression in a second language particularly difficult. In your first language, emotions come out in familiar rhythms and familiar words. In English, they can feel unfamiliar, exposed, and slightly theatrical. So let's practice expressing a range of emotions in natural and authentic English. Shadow these emotional expression sentences with me. Listen, I have to be honest. I am feeling a little overwhelmed at the moment. Shadow it. I am actually really excited about this, more than I expected to be. Shadow it. I feel quite conflicted about this decision. Part of me wants one thing, and part of me wants another. Shadow it. I am not going to pretend I am not disappointed. I am. But I am okay, and I will figure it out. Shadow it. I am genuinely proud of myself for doing that. It was hard, and I did it anyway. Shadow it. Something about this situation makes me a little uncomfortable. I am not sure exactly why yet. Shadow it. Now notice the quality of emotional vocabulary in those sentences. Overwhelmed, conflicted, disappointed, uncomfortable, proud, excited. These are not basic emotions. They are nuanced and honest and human. And expressing them in English is one of the most powerful things you can do because it makes you real to the person you are talking to. Not a language learner performing English, but a full human being communicating genuinely in English. That is what fluency really is. Not perfect grammar, but authentic human expression. Shadow this definition of fluency with me. Listen. Fluency is not speaking perfectly. Fluency is expressing myself honestly and being understood. I am already more fluent than I think. Shadow it. Fluency is not speaking perfectly. Fluency is expressing myself honestly and being understood. I am already more fluent than I think. Let's build on the confidence we have been developing and try some longer and more sustained conversations. Because one of the characteristics of shyness is that it is easier to manage in short bursts. A brief answer, a quick exchange. But sustaining a longer conversation, staying present and engaged for several minutes, contributing repeatedly to an ongoing exchange. This is where shy learners often begin to run out of steam and retreat back into silence. So let's practice sustained conversation English. The first sustained conversation we are going to practice is talking about something you care about, something you know well. Because the best antidote to shyness in conversation is genuine interest. When you are talking about something that genuinely matters to you, the words come more easily, the anxiety quietens, and your natural enthusiasm takes over from the inner critic. So choose something you love, a hobby, a passion, a topic you find fascinating, and shadow these sustained conversation sentences that could apply to almost any topic you care about. Listen, I have been really interested in this for a few years now. It started almost by accident. I came across it without really expecting to, and it just clicked for me. Shadow it. I have been really interested in this for a few years now. It started almost by accident. I came across it, and it just clicked for me. Now continuing. Listen. What I love about it is that there is always more to learn. Every time I think I understand it fully, I discover something new that changes my perspective completely. Shadow it. What I love about it is that there is always more to learn. Every time I think I understand it fully, I discover something new that changes my perspective. Now, let's add a personal story element. Listen. I remember the first time I really felt it. I was just sitting quietly on my own, and something about it moved me in a way I had not expected. It is hard to explain exactly, but that was the moment I knew this was something I genuinely cared about. Shadow it. I remember the first time I really felt it. I was sitting quietly on my own, and something about it moved me. It is hard to explain, but that was the moment I knew I genuinely cared about it. These sentences work for talking about music, art, cooking, sport, nature, books, film, or any passion you hold. They are emotionally honest, naturally structured, and sustain a conversation beautifully because they invite the other person to share their own experience in return. Next, we will practice a sustained conversation about a more neutral, everyday topic. Because not every conversation will be about your passions, and shy learners need to be able to sustain a conversation even when the topic is ordinary. Shadow this sustained everyday conversation with me. The topic is a recent experience you had. Listen. Something interesting happened to me recently that I keep thinking about. I was, and describe a simple recent situation. And it made me realize something I had not thought about before. Shadow it. Something interesting happened to me recently that I keep thinking about. I was, and it made me realize something I had not thought about before. Now continue. Listen, I do not know if this happens to you, but sometimes ordinary moments surprise me. I will be doing something completely routine, and suddenly I notice something about it that feels new or significant. Does that ever happen to you? Shadow it. I do not know if this happens to you, but sometimes ordinary moments surprise me. I will be doing something completely routine and suddenly notice something that feels new or significant. Does that ever happen to you? Notice that last question. Does that ever happen to you? That single question does something remarkable in a conversation. It shifts the attention from you to the other person. It invites them to share. It creates connection through shared experience. And for shy learners, asking a genuine and curious question is often the most natural and most comfortable contribution they can make to a conversation. So let's practice some genuinely curious questions that sustain conversation naturally. Shadow these with me. Listen. What made you first interested in that? Shadow it. How long have you been doing this? Shadow it. What has been the most surprising thing you have learned about it? Shadow it. Do you think that is something most people experience, or is it more specific to you? Shadow it. What would you do differently if you were starting again from the beginning? Shadow it. These questions are warm, specific, and genuinely interesting. And asking one of them in any conversation gives the other person something real to engage with and buys you the most natural and comfortable pause in the world. The pause of listening. We are now going to navigate one of the most specific and most needed conversation areas for shy English learners. Navigating social situations at events or gatherings where you do not know many people. Parties, work events, community gatherings, networking occasions. These situations are the ultimate test for shy people in any language. And in a second language, they can feel genuinely overwhelming. So let's practice them step by step. First, arriving at an event and greeting the host. Listen and shadow. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I have been looking forward to this. You have a lovely home. Shadow it. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I have been looking forward to this. You have a lovely home. Simple, warm, genuine. Now let's practice approaching someone you do not know at an event. This is the moment shy people dread most, the cold approach. Listen and shadow. Hi, I do not think we have met. I am, and say your name. How do you know the host? Shadow it. Hi, I do not think we have met. I am, how do you know the host? That is a perfect opening question for any social event because everyone has an answer to it, and it immediately establishes a connection point between you. Now let's continue that conversation. They answer and tell you how they know the host. You respond, "Oh, interesting. How long have you known them?" Shadow it. They answer. You continue. "And what do you do? Are you based here or are you visiting?" Shadow it. They answer. You continue. "Oh, really? That sounds fascinating. What does a typical day look like for you in that role?" Shadow it. Notice how that entire conversation is built almost entirely on questions. You are not performing. You are not trying to impress. You are simply being curious and attentive. And curiosity, genuine human curiosity, is the most powerful social tool in any language. Now let's practice the graceful exit from a conversation at a social event. Because shy people often stay in conversations longer than they want to out of politeness and then feel exhausted. The graceful exit is a skill. Shadow these exit phrases with me. Listen. It was really lovely talking to you. I am going to go and say hello to a few other people, but I hope we get a chance to chat again later. Shadow it. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I should go and find my friend, but it was genuinely great to meet you. Shadow it. Let me give you my contact details. I would love to continue this conversation sometime. Shadow it. Now we are going to do something different, something that goes to the very heart of what this session is about. We are going to practice the most intimate and most powerful form of English for shy people, the language of self-permission. Because underneath most shyness, underneath the fear of mistakes and the anxiety about judgment, there is a deeper and more fundamental issue. The shy person does not feel they have permission to take up space, permission to be heard, permission to matter in the conversation. And so a huge part of building speaking confidence is not practicing more phrases. It is giving yourself permission, real and deep and genuine permission to speak, to be imperfect, to take your time, to have opinions, to change your mind, to not know the answer, to be exactly where you are in your language journey and still have something worth saying. So shadow these self-permission sentences with me and say them slowly and mean them. Listen. I have permission to speak even when I am not certain my English is perfect. Shadow it. I have permission to speak, even when I am not certain my English is perfect. Listen. I have permission to take a moment before I answer. Thoughtfulness is not slowness. It is intelligence. Shadow it. I have permission to take a moment before I answer. Thoughtfulness is not slowness. It is intelligence. Listen. I have permission to have an opinion that is different from everyone else in the room. Shadow it. I have permission to have an opinion that is different from everyone else in the room. Listen. I have permission to not understand something and to say so clearly and without embarrassment. Shadow it. I have permission to not understand something and to say so clearly and without embarrassment. Listen. I have permission to make mistakes and keep speaking. Mistakes do not end conversations. They are part of them. Shadow it. I have permission to make mistakes and keep speaking. Mistakes do not end conversations. They are part of them. Listen. I have permission to be a shy person who speaks English bravely. Bravery and shyness are not opposites. They belong together. Shadow it. I have permission to be a shy person who speaks English bravely. Bravery and shyness are not opposites. They belong together. That last sentence is one of the most important things I will say in this entire session. Bravery and shyness are not opposites. The bravest people in any room are often the shyest because they feel the fear most fully, and they speak anyway. Let's shift gears and talk about building a daily confidence habit, because confidence in English does not come from one session. It comes from consistent, small acts of brave speaking, repeated day after day. And for shy people, the daily confidence habit needs to be designed carefully. It cannot be too big. It cannot be too exposed. It cannot depend on other people cooperating or being kind. It needs to be something you control entirely. So here is the daily confidence habit I want you to build every day. Just one brave English moment, not 10, not 5, just one. It might be as small as asking a question in English when you would normally have stayed silent, or saying good morning to someone in English, or leaving a comment in English on a video or post, or calling a service in English instead of avoiding it, or speaking one sentence out loud to yourself in English while you are alone at home, or recording a 30-second voice memo in English just for yourself that nobody else will ever hear. Just one brave moment every day. And shadow this daily commitment with me. Listen, today I am going to have one brave English moment. Just one. It does not have to be big. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to happen. And when it does, I am going to notice it and acknowledge it and let it count. Shadow it. Today, I am going to have one brave English moment. Just one. It does not have to be big or perfect. It just has to happen. And when it does, I am going to notice it and acknowledge it and let it count. Now let's add the most important part of the daily confidence habit, the acknowledgement. Because shy people almost never acknowledge their own brave moments. They speak, they survive the conversation, and immediately their inner critic finds something wrong with how they handled it. The daily habit is not complete until you have acknowledged the bravery. Shadow this acknowledgement with me. Listen, I did something brave in English today. It was small, but it was real, and it counts. And tomorrow, I will do one more small, brave thing. And the day after that, and slowly, very slowly, the brave moments will outnumber the silent ones. Shadow it. I did something brave in English today. It was small, but it was real, and it counts. And tomorrow, I will do one more small, brave thing. And slowly, the brave moments will outnumber the silent ones. Building on that daily routine, we move to the weekly Brave English Challenge. Because once the daily habit is established, the weekly challenge adds one additional layer of intentional growth. Each week, you choose one slightly bigger, brave English moment than the ones you have been doing daily. Something that stretches you just a little beyond your current comfort zone. Just one. And you do it once during the week. Shadow these weekly challenge sentences with me. Listen. This week, my brave English challenge is to start a conversation with someone I do not know well. Just a short one, just a beginning. Shadow it. This week, my brave English challenge is to ask a question out loud in a group setting instead of keeping it to myself. Shadow it. This week, my brave English challenge is to call somewhere in English instead of sending an email. Shadow it. This week, my brave English challenge is to share my opinion on something in English, even when I am not certain everyone will agree. Shadow it. Each of those weekly challenges is one rung higher on the confidence ladder, one brave moment larger than yesterday. And the shy English learner who takes one brave step every week for a year is a completely different speaker at the end of that year than they were at the beginning. Not because their grammar improved, but because their relationship with speaking changed. Because they learned that the fear does not go away, but that speaking despite the fear becomes a habit, and habits change everything. Another crucial area that most English courses never address is the physical experience of shyness. Because shyness is not just a mental experience. It lives in the body. And until you learn to work with your body rather than fight against it, the mental practice alone will only take you so far. When a shy person is about to speak English in a challenging situation, the body responds with real and measurable physical signals. The heart beats faster, the breathing becomes shallower, the throat tightens, the hands may tremble slightly, the face may flush, the stomach may clench. These are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that your nervous system is taking the situation seriously. And there is actually something almost beautiful about that. Your body is responding to speaking English the way it responds to something that matters. And speaking English does matter to you. That is why you are here. So let's practice working with these physical signals rather than being controlled by them. The single most powerful physical tool for shy speakers is the breath. A slow, deliberate breath before speaking does several things simultaneously. It lowers the heart rate slightly. It relaxes the throat. It gives the brain a fraction of a second more to organize the first words, and it signals to your nervous system that you are safe. So shadow this pre-speaking breath practice with me. Listen. Before I speak, I take one slow breath. Not obviously, not dramatically, just one quiet, deliberate breath that says to my body, we are okay. We are safe. And then I speak. Shadow it. Before I speak, I take one slow breath. Quiet and deliberate. It says to my body, we are okay. We are safe. And then I speak. Now let's practice some sentences that help you acknowledge physical nervousness without being controlled by it. Shadow these with me. Listen. I notice I am feeling nervous right now. That is okay. Nervousness means this matters to me, and things that matter are worth feeling nervous about. Shadow it. I notice I am feeling nervous. That is okay. Nervousness means this matters to me, and things that matter are worth feeling nervous about. Now another. Listen. My heart is beating faster than usual. That is just my body getting ready. It is energy, not weakness. And I can use that energy to speak with more presence. Shadow it. My heart is beating faster. That is my body getting ready. It is energy, not weakness. and I can use that energy to speak with more presence. These physical reframings are not tricks. They are accurate. The physical sensations of nervousness and the physical sensations of excitement are almost identical. The difference is interpretation, and you get to choose the interpretation. Shadow this choice with me. Listen. I choose to interpret my nervousness as readiness, as aliveness, as proof that I care. And caring is always a good reason to speak. Shadow it. I choose to interpret my nervousness as readiness, as aliveness, as proof that I care. And caring is always a good reason to speak. Let's examine something shy English learners rarely discuss openly, but almost universally experience: the phenomenon of speaking differently in different environments. Most shy learners have had the experience of speaking English beautifully and naturally in one context, alone in their room, with one trusted person, after one glass of something that relaxed their guard, and then being completely unable to access that same English in a more formal or observed context. And this inconsistency is incredibly frustrating because it proves that the English is there. It exists. The shy learner knows it. But something about observation or formality or perceived judgment locks it away. So let's practice closing the gap between your private English and your public English. The key insight is this: your private English feels natural because there is no audience for your mistakes, no one to judge the imperfect sentence, no one to notice the long pause. And so your brain relaxes and the language flows. The goal of this practice is to bring some of that private relaxation into your public speaking. And the way to do that is to practice speaking publicly to yourself first. Shadow this private to public practice with me. Listen. Right now, I am speaking English out loud, just to myself, just in this space. And I notice how different it feels when there is no one watching. My voice is more relaxed. My sentences come more easily. My English sounds more like me. Shadow it. Right now, I am speaking English out loud, just to myself, just in this space. I notice how different it feels when there is no one watching. My voice is more relaxed. My sentences come more easily. My English sounds more like me. Now, let's practice bringing that private ease into a public moment. Shadow this transition sentence. Listen. I am about to speak in a situation where I feel observed. Before I do, I take a breath, and I remember what my English sounds like when I am relaxed. I carry that relaxed version of myself into this moment. Shadow it. I am about to speak in a situation where I feel observed. I take a breath and remember what my English sounds like when I am relaxed. I carry that relaxed version of myself into this moment. Now, let's practice some sentences that help anchor you to your relaxed, private English self, even in public situations. Shadow these with me. Listen. This is still just me, even in this room with these people. It is still just me speaking English, the same English I speak when I am alone. Shadow it. Now another. Listen. I do not need to perform. I just need to communicate. And communication is something I already know how to do. Shadow it. And one more, listen. The most natural version of my English is already inside me. I am accessing it right now. Shadow it. These anchoring sentences work because they redirect your attention from the external audience back to the internal experience of speaking. And the internal experience of speaking, when you choose to focus on it, is actually quite comfortable. It is familiar. It is yours. Next, we need to address the relationship between vocabulary and shyness, because there is a specific kind of shyness that is not about social anxiety, but about vocabulary anxiety. The fear that you will not have the right word, the fear of the vocabulary gap. And this fear causes shy learners to plan their sentences so carefully before speaking that by the time they have planned the perfect sentence, the moment has passed. So let's practice the single most important vocabulary skill for shy English speakers, the skill of approximation. Approximation means getting close enough to communicate even when you do not have the exact word. It means using the language you have to describe the language you need. And it is one of the most sophisticated and most underrated skills in all of language learning. Shadow these approximation sentences with me. Listen. I do not know the exact word for this in English, but it is something like, and describe it. Shadow it. Now another. Listen. The word I am looking for is similar to, but slightly different. It means, and explain the meaning. Shadow it. And another. Listen. In my language, we have a word for this that does not translate exactly. The closest I can get in English is shadow it. And another. Listen. I know there is a better word for this, but right now I am going to use. And choose the nearest word you know. Shadow it. Now, let's practice a full approximation sequence. Imagine you want to describe the feeling of arriving home after a long trip and feeling completely at ease and familiar with the space. You do not know the exact English word for that specific feeling, so you approximate. Listen and shadow. I am trying to describe a feeling that I do not have the exact English word for. It is the feeling you get when you walk into your home after being away for a long time. Everything is exactly as you left it. The smells are familiar, the light is right, and your body just settles, like it remembers where it belongs. Do you know what I mean? Shadow it. I am trying to describe a feeling I do not have the exact word for. The feeling when you walk into your home after being away. Everything is exactly as you left it. The smells are familiar, and your body just settles, like it remembers where it belongs. Do you know what I mean? That approximation is beautiful. It is precise, it is evocative, and it is far more interesting than a single word would have been. Vocabulary gaps are not failures. They are invitations to be creative with language. And creativity with language is a sign of genuine fluency. What happens after a difficult conversation? This is another critical piece of the puzzle, because for shy English learners, the aftermath of a challenging speaking situation can sometimes be harder than the conversation itself. After a difficult or anxious English exchange, the inner critic often goes into overdrive, replaying every imperfect sentence, every moment of hesitation, every word that came out wrong. And this post-conversation inner critic voice can be so relentless and so discouraging that shy learners begin to dread not just the conversations themselves, but the aftermath that follows. So let's practice post-conversation self-compassion in English, the language of processing a difficult speaking experience kindly and fairly. Shadow these post-conversation sentences with me. Listen. That conversation was hard for me. I am going to acknowledge that without judgment. Hard things are worth acknowledging. Shadow it. That conversation was hard for me. I am going to acknowledge that without judgment. Hard things are worth acknowledging. Now another. Listen. There were moments in that conversation where I did not express myself as clearly as I wanted to. I noticed that and I let it go. I cannot go back and change it, and it was not as significant as it felt in the moment. Shadow it. There were moments where I did not express myself as clearly as I wanted to. I noticed that and let it go. I cannot change it, and it was not as significant as it felt. Now another. Listen. There was also at least one moment in that conversation where my English worked, where I said something and it landed exactly as I intended. I am going to focus on that moment. I am going to learn from it, and I am going to remember it next time. Shadow it. There was at least one moment where my English worked, where I said something and it landed exactly as I intended. I am going to focus on that, learn from it, and remember it next time. And one final post-conversation sentence. Listen. I had that conversation. It was imperfect, and the world did not end. Nobody thinks less of me for having imperfect English, and I am proud of myself for showing up. Shadow it. I had that conversation. It was imperfect, and the world did not end. Nobody thinks less of me for imperfect English, and I am proud of myself for showing up. These post-conversation sentences do something critically important. They interrupt the rumination cycle before it gains momentum, because the energy you spend criticizing a conversation that is already over is energy that could be building your confidence for the next one. Moving on, let's discuss finding your people, because one of the most powerful things a shy English learner can do is find the environments and the people where their English flourishes most naturally. Not every English environment is equally welcoming for shy people. Some conversations are fast and competitive and reward the loudest voice. Those environments will feel crushing to a shy learner, regardless of their English level. But other conversations are slower and more thoughtful and reward depth and listening and genuine engagement. And in those environments, shy learners often thrive extraordinarily. So part of building your English confidence is not just practicing harder in difficult environments. It is also choosing more wisely which environments to prioritize. Shadow these environment-choosing sentences with me. Listen. I know that I speak English better in one-on-one conversations than in groups, so I am going to build my confidence there first. Shadow it. I know I speak English better one-on-one than in groups, so I am going to build my confidence there first. Now another. Listen. I speak English better with people who are patient and genuinely curious than with people who seem impatient or distracted. So I am going to seek out patient and curious people to practice with. Shadow it. I speak English better with patient, curious people than with impatient, distracted ones. So I am going to seek out patient, curious people to practice with. And another. Listen. I notice that I speak English better when the topic genuinely interests me. So when I have a choice, I am going to steer conversations towards topics I care about. Shadow it. I speak English better when the topic genuinely interests me. So when I have a choice, I am going to steer conversations towards topics I care about. These sentences are not avoidance strategies. They are intelligent environment design. The shy learner who knows their own patterns and designs their practice environment around those patterns builds confidence far faster than the shy learner who forces themselves into the most uncomfortable situations they can find and then wonders why the confidence is not growing. We are now going to practice speaking English about shyness itself. Because one of the most liberating things a shy English learner can do is talk about their shyness openly and honestly in English. Not as an apology or an excuse, but as a simple and honest self-description. And the moment you can describe your own shyness clearly and without shame in English, you have taken much of its power away. Shadow these self-description sentences with me. Listen. I am quite a shy person by nature. I tend to observe and listen before I contribute to a conversation. Shadow it. Now another. Listen. I sometimes need a little more time than others to find the right words. I appreciate conversations that have space for that. Shadow it. And another. Listen. I feel more comfortable in one-on-one conversations than in large groups. That is just how I am wired, and I have made peace with it. Shadow it. And one more. Listen. I have been working on my English confidence for a while now. I am better than I used to be, and I am still improving. I find that being honest about the journey makes the journey easier. Shadow it. I have been working on my English confidence for a while. I am better than I used to be and still improving. Being honest about the journey makes the journey easier. These self-descriptions are disarming in the most positive sense. When you name your shyness honestly and without embarrassment, you remove the awkwardness that shy people often sense around themselves. You make it easy for others to be patient with you. And you model the kind of self-aware and grounded honesty that people find genuinely refreshing. Let's address a very specific form of English anxiety that affects shy learners in a particular way: digital and telephone English. Because in the modern world, a huge amount of English communication happens through screens and speakers, video calls, voice messages, phone calls to services, online meetings, and written messages that need to sound confident and natural. And for shy learners, these digital formats can sometimes feel even more anxiety-producing than face-to-face conversation. A phone call is terrifying because you cannot see the person, and you cannot use body language or facial expressions to help bridge any gaps in understanding. A video call is terrifying because you can see yourself on screen, and the self-observation amplifies every moment of hesitation. And written messages in English carry their own anxiety because they feel permanent and examinable in a way that spoken conversation does not. So let's practice each of these digital formats directly. First, let's practice starting a phone call confidently. Shadow these phone call openers with me. Listen. Hello, this is, and say your name. I am calling about, and state your reason clearly. Shadow it. Now another. Listen. Good morning. I wonder if you could help me. I am trying to find out. Shadow it. And one more. Listen. Hi. I hope I have reached the right department. I have a question about. Shadow it. Now let's practice the most common moment of phone call anxiety, when you do not understand what the other person said. Shadow these phone comprehension phrases. Listen. I am sorry, could you repeat that please? I did not quite catch it. Shadow it. Could you speak a little more slowly, please? I want to make sure I understand correctly. Shadow it. I think I understood most of that. Could you just confirm and ask about the specific part you missed? Shadow it. Now, let's practice ending a phone call smoothly. Listen. Thank you so much for your help. That is everything I needed. Have a good day. Goodbye. Shadow it. I really appreciate your time. I think I have everything I need now. Thank you and goodbye. Shadow it. These phone call sentences are clean, calm, and completely appropriate for any service call in any English-speaking country. Now, let's practice one specific video call situation. The moment when there is a technical problem and you need to address it. Listen and shadow. I am so sorry. I think there might be a connection issue on my end. Can you hear me clearly? Shadow it. I lost you for a moment there. Could you repeat the last thing you said? Shadow it. I apologize for the background noise. Let me and describe what you are doing to fix it. Shadow it. These technical recovery phrases are remarkably useful because every video call eventually has a technical moment. And having those phrases ready means you handle the interruptions smoothly and professionally, rather than panicking in silence. Next, we will focus on written English confidence. Because many shy learners spend enormous amounts of time rewording and second-guessing their written English messages. They write something, delete it, rewrite it, read it back 10 times, and still feel uncertain before sending. So let's shadow some confident message-sending principles and the phrases that go with them. Shadow these written English confident sentences. Listen. I am going to send this message without rewriting it a 5th time. It communicates what I need to communicate, and that is enough. Shadow it. I do not need my written English to be perfect. I need it to be clear and kind. It is both of those things. Shadow it. If there is a small error in this message, the person receiving it will understand what I mean and will not think less of me. Shadow it. Now, let's practice some natural written English phrases that shy learners often struggle to write confidently. Shadow these message-starting phrases. Listen. I hope this message finds you well. Shadow it. I am writing to ask about. Shadow it. I wanted to reach out because. Shadow it. I hope you do not mind me messaging. Shadow it. I have been meaning to write for a while, and I am finally doing it. Shadow it. Now, some message closing phrases. Shadow these. Listen. Please let me know if you need any more information from me. Shadow it. I look forward to hearing from you. Shadow it. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Shadow it. I appreciate your patience with my English. It is still a work in progress. Shadow it. That last phrase is worth pausing on. I appreciate your patience with my English. It is still a work in progress. That sentence is both honest and charming. It disarms any judgment before it can form. It shows self-awareness without apology, and it invites warmth rather than criticism. Shy learners who use phrases like this often find that people respond with unexpected kindness and encouragement, because honesty about our limitations tends to bring out the best in the people around us. There is one more digital format that shy learners find particularly difficult: voice messages. Because many messaging apps use voice notes now, and shy people often find them uniquely anxiety-producing. A voice message feels permanent, recorded, examinable in a way that live conversation is not. So the inner critic tends to be especially loud before you press record. Shadow these voice message confidence sentences with me. Listen. I am going to record this voice message now. I am going to speak naturally, and I am not going to re-record it 5 times. Here goes. Shadow it. The person receiving this message cares about what I am saying, not about how polished it sounds. Shadow it. It is okay if I pause or self-correct. That is what real speech sounds like, even for native speakers. Shadow it. I pressed send. It is done, and it communicated what I needed to communicate. That is all a voice message needs to do. Shadow it. Those 4 sentences together form a complete voice message confidence ritual. Read before pressing record. Press record, speak, press send, done. No 5th take required. You have absorbed a lot of information today. Before we move into our final exercises, give yourself another quick physical reset. Take a sip of water, close your eyes for just a second, and let the tension leave your body. You are doing beautifully. Now, let's explore one of the most underrated and most powerful practice tools available to every shy English learner: speaking to yourself in English. Not in your head, out loud. In your own voice, in your own space, where nobody is listening and nobody is judging. Because one of the reasons shy people struggle so much in real conversations is that their English only ever gets practiced in observed and pressured conditions. They never speak English in a relaxed and private way. They never hear what their own natural English sounds like when the anxiety is absent. And so the relaxed version of their English never gets developed. Speaking to yourself in English every day for even 5 to 10 minutes is one of the most transformative habits a shy learner can build. It trains your English in a zero-pressure environment. It makes your voice comfortable with the sounds and rhythms of English. And it develops the habit of thinking in English rather than translating from your first language. So let's practice some self-talk English together. Shadow these sentences that you might say to yourself during a normal day. Listen. Right. What do I need to do today? I have a few things on my list. Let me go through them one by one. Shadow it. Right. What do I need to do today? A few things on my list. Let me go through them one by one. Now another. Listen. I am going to make myself a cup of tea and then sit down and focus for an hour. I always think more clearly after tea. Shadow it. I am going to make myself a cup of tea and then sit down and focus for an hour. I always think more clearly after tea. Now another. Listen. That was a really interesting thing I heard today. I want to think about it more. The part that surprised me most was... Shadow it. That was a really interesting thing I heard today. I want to think about it more. The part that surprised me most was, and one more. Listen, I am feeling tired today. I think I need to be gentle with myself and not push too hard. Tomorrow I will have more energy. Shadow it. I am feeling tired today. I need to be gentle with myself and not push too hard. Tomorrow I will have more energy. These self-talk sentences are quiet and intimate and completely private. And practicing them every day builds an English inner life. A genuine internal landscape where English is the natural medium of your own thinking and feeling and noticing. And that internal English landscape is the foundation of everything. Because the shy person who has a rich and practiced English inner life is never truly without words in public. They always have somewhere to reach back to. A familiar and comfortable English voice that is entirely their own. Next, we will climb what I call the confidence ladder. Let me describe the 5 rungs of the confidence ladder and shadow a sentence for each one. Rung 1. Speaking English alone. This is the foundation. Talking out loud to yourself in English. Narrating your day. Shadowing videos. Reading aloud. No audience, no judgment, pure practice. Shadow this rung 1 sentence. Listen. Every day I speak English out loud to myself. It feels safe and natural, and it is where my confidence is built first. Shadow it. Every day I speak English out loud to myself. It feels safe and natural. It is where my confidence is built first. Rung 2. Writing English to one trusted person. A friend, a language partner, someone who knows you are learning and will respond with patience. Shadow this rung 2 sentence. Listen. I have someone I write to in English regularly. They understand I am learning, and in that safe space, my English comes out more freely than anywhere else. Shadow it. I have someone I write to in English regularly. They understand I am learning, and in that safe space, my English flows more freely. Rung 3. Speaking English with one trusted person. A language exchange partner, a friend who speaks English, anyone who makes you feel safe. Shadow this rung 3 sentence. Listen. In one-on-one conversation with someone I trust, my English is closest to what it actually is. Relaxed and real and genuinely mine. Shadow it. In one-on-one conversation with someone I trust, my English is closest to what it actually is. Relaxed and real and genuinely mine. Rung 4. Speaking English in small, familiar groups. Work meetings with known colleagues. Study groups. Regular social gatherings with people you recognize. Shadow this rung 4 sentence. Listen. I am building my group conversation English by starting with groups where I already know most of the people. Familiar faces lower my anxiety and give my English more space to breathe. Shadow it. I am building my group conversation English by starting with groups where I already know most of the people. Familiar faces lower my anxiety and give my English more space to breathe. Rung 5. Speaking English in new and unfamiliar environments. New people, new settings. The full, real-world English situations that feel most exposed and most vulnerable. Shadow this rung 5 sentence. Listen. I am working towards being able to speak English comfortably with new people in new situations. I am not there yet everywhere, but I am closer than I was, and I am proud of every rung I have climbed. Shadow it. I am working towards speaking English comfortably with new people in new situations. I am not there yet everywhere, but I am closer than I was, and I am proud of every rung I have climbed. The confidence ladder works because it is honest about the fact that confidence is not all or nothing. You can be on rung 5 with one person and rung 2 with another. You can be on rung 4 on a good day and rung 1 on a hard day. And all of that is normal and human and completely okay. The only direction that matters is upward, one rung at a time. Let's shift our focus to the language of encouragement, because shy English learners need to hear encouragement not just from others, but from themselves. And one of the most transformative practices a shy learner can build is a habit of genuinely encouraging their own progress, not toxic positivity, not pretending struggles do not exist, but real and warm and specific acknowledgement of how far they have come. Shadow these self-encouragement sentences with me and really mean them. Listen. A year ago, I could not have done what I just did in this session. I have grown more than I sometimes let myself see. Shadow it. A year ago, I could not have done what I just did in this session. I have grown more than I sometimes let myself see. Now another. Listen. The fact that I understand this much English, that I can follow this entire session without struggling, is remarkable. I forget to acknowledge that. Shadow it. The fact that I understand this much English and can follow this entire session without struggling is remarkable. I forget to acknowledge that. And another. Listen. I spoke English today. Maybe just a little. Maybe just in this practice session. But I spoke it. And every time I speak it, I make it slightly more mine. Shadow it. I spoke English today. Maybe just in this practice session, but I spoke it. And every time I speak it, I make it slightly more mine. And one final one. Listen. I am doing something most people never do. I am learning to express myself in a second language. That takes more courage than most people will ever know. And I am doing it. Shadow it. I am doing something most people never do. I am learning to express myself in a second language. That takes more courage than most people will ever know. And I am doing it. Let that last sentence stay with you. You are doing something most people will never attempt, and you are doing it every time you show up for a session like this one. We are now going to try something that shy English learners need but rarely get: pressure practice. Not because pressure is good for shyness, but because real life creates pressure, whether we are ready for it or not. And practicing under mild, simulated pressure in a safe environment like this one is far better preparation than only ever practicing in perfect conditions. So I am going to give you a series of rapid-fire shadow sequences. These are faster than the rest of the session. The gaps between the listen and shadow instruction are shorter. This trains your brain to access English quickly, the way you will need to in a real conversation. Ready? Let's go. Listen. Could you introduce yourself, please? Shadow it. My name is, I am from, and I have been learning English for a while. It is something I really enjoy. Listen. What do you do for work or study? Shadow it. I am currently, and describe your situation. I find it challenging, but also very rewarding. Listen. What do you enjoy doing in your free time? Shadow it. I enjoy, and name something you love. I find it helps me relax and recharge. Listen. What do you think about that idea? Shadow it. That is an interesting point. I see some real advantages to it, although I would also consider. Listen. How long have you been learning English? Shadow it. I have been learning for years now. I have improved a lot, but I still have plenty to work on. Listen. Do you prefer living in a city or in the countryside? Shadow it. I think I prefer because, but I can also see the appeal of. Listen. What is your opinion on working from home? Shadow it. I have mixed feelings about it, actually. On one hand, on the other hand, listen. Tell me something interesting about your culture. Shadow it. Something that I think people find interesting is, it is quite different from what most people expect. Notice how every single one of those responses is natural, complete, and completely manageable at B1 to B2 level. None of them required perfect grammar. None of them required advanced vocabulary. They required only the willingness to speak, and you just did, every single one of them. That is pressure practice. That is brave speaking, and you handled it. Now let's do one final round of pressure practice with slightly more complex responses. This time, the questions are deeper. Ready? Listen. What is the most important lesson you have learned in your life so far? Shadow it. That is a big question. I think the most important lesson for me has been that progress is rarely visible while it is happening. You only see how far you have come when you look back. Listen. If you could change one thing about the world, what would it be? Shadow it. I would want people to be more patient with each other. So much conflict comes from not taking the time to truly understand another person's perspective. Listen. What does success mean to you personally? Shadow it. For me, success is not about achievement in the traditional sense. It is more about feeling genuinely connected to the people around me and the work I do. Listen. What is something you are proud of that most people would not know about? Shadow it. I am proud of the fact that I kept learning English even when it was hard and I felt like giving up. That persistence means more to me than any test result. Shadow it again with real feeling. I am proud of the fact that I kept learning English even when it was hard and I felt like giving up. That persistence means more to me than any test result. Notice that last answer. It is about you, about this journey, and it is completely true. You have kept going through the shyness and the anxiety and the self-doubt and the moments of wanting to give up. And you are still here. That is worth being proud of, more than you know. Equally important for shy learners is recovery language, because no matter how much you prepare, there will be moments in real English conversations where something does not go as planned. You mishear something, you misunderstand something, you say something that comes out wrong, you forget a word at a critical moment. These moments of conversational turbulence are inevitable for every speaker of every language. But for shy learners, they can feel catastrophic. And without recovery language ready, one small stumble can derail an entire conversation and send the shy learner back into silence. So let's practice recovery sentences until they are completely automatic. Shadow these recovery phrases with me. Listen. Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. What I meant to say was, shadow it. I think I expressed that badly. Can I try again? Shadow it. Actually, ignore what I just said. I had it slightly wrong. What I actually think is, shadow it. I realize I confused myself just then. Let me start that sentence over. Shadow it. I am not explaining this very well. Give me one moment to organize my thoughts. Shadow it. Now let's practice a fuller recovery sequence. Imagine you are in the middle of explaining something and you completely lose the thread. Listen and shadow how you recover. I apologize. I had a clear thought a moment ago and it has completely escaped me. That happens to me sometimes, especially in English. Can I come back to that point in a moment? Shadow it. I apologize. I had a clear thought and it has completely escaped me. That happens to me sometimes, especially in English. Can I come back to that point in a moment? Now imagine the other person says, of course. You respond, thank you for your patience. Okay, what I was trying to say is, and you find the thread again, or you take the conversation in a slightly different direction. Shadow it. Thank you for your patience. What I was trying to say is, these recovery sequences are not signs of failure. They are signs of resilience. And the shy learner who can recover from a stumble and continue speaking has achieved something genuinely remarkable. Because they have proven to themselves that one imperfect moment does not end the conversation. The conversation continues, and so do they. Let's turn to the language of gratitude and closing in social conversations. Because shy learners often feel the most anxious at the very end of a conversation. How do you close gracefully? How do you express that you enjoyed the exchange without sounding either too eager or too cold? How do you leave a good impression? Shadow these conversation closing phrases with me. Listen. It has been really lovely talking to you. I have enjoyed this conversation more than I expected. Shadow it. Thank you for being so patient with me. I really appreciated that. Shadow it. I feel like we could have talked for much longer. I hope we get the chance again sometime. Shadow it. This has been one of the most enjoyable conversations I have had in English. Thank you for that. Shadow it. I am glad I came over and introduced myself. That took some courage, but it was completely worth it. Shadow it. Now, let's practice expressing gratitude for a learning or language exchange conversation specifically. Listen. Thank you for speaking English with me today. You were very patient, and I learned a lot from our conversation. I hope we can do it again. Shadow it. Thank you for speaking English with me today. You were very patient, and I learned a lot. I hope we can do it again. And one more. Listen. I know my English is not perfect yet, but conversations like this one make me feel like I am getting there. So thank you genuinely for your time. Shadow it. I know my English is not perfect yet, but conversations like this make me feel like I am getting there. So thank you genuinely for your time. These closing phrases are warm and human and honest. They leave a genuinely positive impression. And for shy learners who worry about how they came across in a conversation, ending with warmth and genuine gratitude is one of the best ways to leave a memory that overrides any imperfect moment that came before. Next, we will apply everything to 3 complete short conversations from beginning to middle to end, each one covering a different context that shy learners frequently encounter. Shadow your complete side of each conversation with full voice and genuine presence. Conversation 1. Meeting a new colleague at work for the first time. They say good morning and introduce themselves. Your response. Good morning. It is lovely to meet you. I have heard your name mentioned a few times already. How are you settling in? They say they are settling in well and ask how long you have been with the company. Your response. I have been here for about 2 years now. It feels like longer, but in a good way. I really enjoy it here. The team is wonderful. Are you based in this office full-time, or do you work remotely sometimes? They answer, and the conversation continues naturally. Your closing. I will let you get on, but it was really lovely to meet you properly. I am sure we will be chatting more as the weeks go on. Shadow the full exchange now. Good morning. It is lovely to meet you. I have heard your name mentioned already. How are you settling in? I have been here about 2 years. I really enjoy it. The team is wonderful. Are you based here full-time, or do you work remotely? I will let you get on, but it was lovely to meet you properly. I am sure we will chat more. Conversation 2. Asking for directions from a stranger. Excuse me, I am really sorry to bother you. I am looking for, and name a place or street. Am I going in the right direction? They give directions. You respond. Oh, perfect. So I just, and repeat the main instruction back to confirm. And then it is on the left. Is that right? They confirm. You close. That is wonderful. Thank you so much. You have been incredibly helpful. Have a lovely day. Shadow the exchange. Excuse me, I am sorry to bother you. I am looking for, am I going in the right direction? So I just, and it is on the left. Is that right? Thank you so much. You have been incredibly helpful. Have a lovely day. Conversation 3. Ordering food at a restaurant when there is something you are unsure about. You look at the menu and ask the server. Excuse me, could I ask about this dish? I am not sure if it contains, and name an ingredient. The server explains. You respond. Oh, that is perfect. Thank you for checking. In that case, I would love that, please. And could I also ask about the just briefly? They answer. You respond. Wonderful. That sounds delicious, actually. I will have that as well. Thank you so much. Shadow the exchange. Excuse me, could I ask about this dish? I am not sure if it contains... That is perfect. Thank you for checking. I would love that, please. Could I ask about the as well? Wonderful. That sounds delicious. I will have that too. Thank you. Notice across all three of those conversations that every interaction was polite, warm, natural, and completely manageable. Not one of them required advanced vocabulary or complex grammar. They required only the willingness to open your mouth and begin. And now you have practiced all three of them. They live in your voice. They belong to you. Now let's step into the final and most energizing part of this session. And I want you to feel the energy shift right now, because everything we have practiced today, the understanding of why shyness happens, the physical breath practice, the inner coach voice, the vocabulary approximation, the confidence ladder, the real conversation phrases, the pressure practice, the recovery language, the self-permission language. All of it has been building to this moment, the moment where you stop practicing being confident and start actually being confident. But before we go into the manifesto, I want to say one more thing that I believe is absolutely true about shy English learners specifically. Shy people are often the best communicators in the room. Not the loudest, not the most frequent contributors, but the best. Because shy people listen more carefully than anyone else. They choose their words with more deliberation. They are more aware of the effect their words have on others. They are more empathetic to the person they are talking to. And when a shy person finally speaks, when they have gathered their courage and chosen their moment and opened their mouth, what comes out is usually worth hearing. More considered, more honest, more human than the words of someone who speaks constantly and without thought. So shadow this truth about shy people with me. Listen. My shyness has made me a better listener than most people will ever be. It has made me more careful with words, more aware of other people. And when I speak, it matters, because I only speak when I have something real to say. Shadow it. My shyness has made me a better listener than most people will ever be. More careful with words, more aware of other people. And when I speak, it matters, because I only speak when I have something real to say. Let that be your foundation, not in spite of your shyness, because of it. So let's shadow the confident, shy person's voice, the voice of someone who knows they are shy, accepts it completely, and chooses to speak anyway, with full awareness and full heart. Shadow these confident sentences with me, strongly, with real voice, not quietly, not tentatively, strongly. Listen, I am a shy person, and I am also a brave speaker. Both of these things are true at the same time. Shadow it strongly. I am a shy person, and I am also a brave speaker. Both of these things are true at the same time. Now another. Listen. My English is not perfect, and it does not need to be. It is mine, and it is real, and it communicates. Shadow it strongly. My English is not perfect, and it does not need to be. It is mine, and it is real, and it communicates. Now another. Listen. I have spent too long staying quiet when I had something to say. That changes today. Not perfectly, not all at once, but it changes. Shadow it strongly. I have spent too long staying quiet when I had something to say. That changes today. Not all at once, but it changes. Now another. Listen. Every time I speak, even imperfectly, I become slightly more fluent. Fluency is built in moments of imperfect, brave speech, not in moments of silence. Shadow it strongly. Every time I speak, even imperfectly, I become slightly more fluent. Fluency is built in moments of imperfect, brave speech, not in moments of silence. And one final one. Listen. I am not waiting until my English is perfect to start speaking. I am speaking now, imperfect and present and real. And that is more than enough. Shadow it strongly. I am not waiting until my English is perfect to start speaking. I am speaking now, imperfect and present and real. And that is more than enough. We will now do one final extended shadowing sequence to close this session. This is your manifesto, the statement of who you are as an English speaker and who you are choosing to become. Shadow it in full, with real voice, with genuine presence, because you have earned every single word of it. Listen. I am a learner who has sometimes stayed quiet when I had something to say. I have felt my throat tighten before a conversation. I have heard my inner critic tell me my English was not good enough. I have avoided situations because the anxiety felt too large. And I am still here. I showed up for this session. I shadowed every sentence. I practiced the inner coach voice. I gave myself permission. I practiced pressure exercises and recovery language and 3 complete real conversations. That is not the behavior of someone who cannot speak English. That is the behavior of someone who is becoming braver every single day. I am a shy person, and I speak English anyway. Not because the fear is gone, but because the language matters more than the fear. Because what I have to say matters more than the fear. Because the people I want to connect with matter more than the fear. My shyness has made me a careful listener and a thoughtful speaker. Those are gifts, and from today, I am building one brave English moment every single day. One moment at a time. One conversation at a time. One imperfect, beautiful, real sentence at a time. Shadow it. I am a learner who has sometimes stayed quiet when I had something to say. I have felt my throat tighten. I have heard my inner critic. I have avoided situations because the anxiety felt too large. And I am still here. I showed up. I practiced. I gave myself permission. That is not the behavior of someone who cannot speak English. That is the behavior of someone becoming braver every single day. I am a shy person, and I speak English anyway. Not because the fear is gone, but because what I have to say matters more than the fear. My shyness has made me a careful listener and a thoughtful speaker. Those are gifts, and from today, I am building one brave English moment every single day. One moment at a time, one sentence at a time. You have completed English for Shy People, and I want to say something to you directly before we finish, something I mean with complete sincerity. The fact that you chose this video, that you sat with the discomfort of hearing your own shyness described so accurately, that you kept going through every shadow exercise, even the ones that felt vulnerable and exposed, says something remarkable about you. It says you are ready, not perfectly ready, not fearlessly ready, but genuinely and bravely ready. Ready to take your English out of the quiet corner where it has been waiting and into the real conversations it was always meant for. You know more English than you show. You have more to say than you have been saying. And the world, your world, is waiting to hear it. In today's session, you learned why shyness happens in a second language and why it is a sign of sensitivity rather than weakness. You trained your inner coach voice to replace your inner critic with honesty and fairness. You practiced the physical breath technique for calming your nervous system before speaking. You identified the situations that trigger your shyness most and practiced phrases for each one. You learned the confidence ladder and how to build your English bravery one rung at a time. You practiced the language of self-permission and gave yourself real and genuine permission to speak imperfectly. You closed the gap between your private and your public English by understanding why it exists. You handled pressure practice with rapid-fire questions that you answered confidently and completely. You practiced recovery language so that no stumble can stop you. And you completed 3 full conversations from first word to final goodbye. And you shadowed your manifesto, the statement of who you are becoming as an English speaker. That is an extraordinary session. And the fact that you sat through all of it tells me everything I need to know about your commitment to this language. So one final thing before you go. Tomorrow, when you wake up, before you reach for your phone, before the day takes over, shadow just one sentence from today. Any sentence, the one that stayed with you most. Say it out loud in your own voice, and let that be your one brave English moment of the day. Then, do it again the next day, and the day after that. One brave moment at a time, one sentence at a time. That is how shy people become fluent. Not in a single dramatic leap, but in 1,000 small, quiet acts of courage that nobody else sees, but that change everything from the inside out. You are a shy person, and you speak English anyway. Please subscribe to English in Moments and turn on your notifications so you never miss a new lesson. We are here every single day with content made specifically for learners like you. Thoughtful, real, patient, brave, and always completely in your corner. Keep speaking, keep shadowing, keep being exactly who you are in English. I will see you in the next lesson.